Veteran's incredible medals mocked by judge, then a surprising general revealed a hidden truth. Jack Turner stood in the small-town courtroom, the weight of his military medals hanging like lead around his neck. Once hailed a hero, he now felt like an intruder in this unforgiving space, hearing the judge's mocking laugh pierce through the air. What's the significance of these trinkets? The absurdity of the question knotted in his gut. Each medal was a testament to courage, to sacrifice, yet here, they were nothing but fodder for derision. A bead of sweat trickled down his forehead, he wiped it away, fingers trembling as he gripped the paperwork tightly in his calloused hands. Every day in the garage, working long, hard hours as a mechanic, Jack had tried to bury the memories of combat and the glory it once brought him. Now, he felt the pressure mounting, an unbearable sense of inadequacy creeping in. Was he just a broken soldier? The townsfolk had moved on, but not him. He stewed at his workbench while the sounds of tools clanging echoed through the garage, the smell of grease choking the sense of honor he had felt just a decade prior. Each grunt from the other mechanics felt like a silent judgment, a comparison he couldn't escape. Even the youngest among them carried the burdens of their family legacies with pride. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The judge's words hung heavy, and part of Jack wanted to fight back, to lash out and reclaim his truth. But deep down, he feared that countering would only amplify their laughter. He turned to General Thompson, his elderly neighbor, whose wisdom often soothed his aching spirit. "You think they care about the truth?" The general had asked once, storm clouds shadowing his frail features. Jack remembered feeling desolate, trapped, as if drowning in a sea of mundane judgments that defied his sacrifices. Racing thoughts ricocheted inside Jack's head, doubts and insecurities tormented him. What if the dreams of valor floated out of reach forever? Memories of late-night conversations with General Thompson began to fade like echoes in his mind, tales of battles, of honor warm in their hearts, but now mere memories, mocking his present struggles. As he clutched onto scraps of dignity, muscles tense and breathing quickening, Jack felt his past fall further away. And then he remembered the attic. His family home was filled with relics and forgotten history. A flicker of hope ignited, an urge to confront the past pulled him back to the musty confines of that dusty room. Hidden in boxes waiting to be unearthed, memories stacked against the wall began to surface, each piece a branch on his family's storied military lineage. Would these relics hold the power to rejuvenate the spirit that had been mocked within these court walls? The urgency wrung through him, pushing back against the agony of doubt. As the judge dismissed him with a wave of his hand, a pang of desperation filled Jack. He felt the world around him begin to swirl. Would he ever find respect again? The questions gnawed at him, intertwining fear and an unrelenting fire for resolution that had betrayed him. Above the courtroom's din, a figure stepped into the light. General Thompson, breath steady and eyes unwavering. "This story isn't finished," he began, equal parts defiance and grace. Jack, heart racing, felt an unfamiliar strength surge as hope intertwined with the anguish that had weighed him down for so long. Would this be the moment everything changed? Jack stepped outside the courtroom, mind racing, and spirit conflicted. The air outside felt sharper, every breath a reminder of both his present turmoil and the memories that haunted him. General Thompson's words echoed in his mind, a flicker of hope amidst the suffocating doubts. But how could he reclaim his narrative, especially after that derisive dismissal? With each step towards his garage, he replayed the judge's condescending tone, a bitter cadence that twisted the honor he once wore like a second skin. It gripped him tighter, demanding answers. What would it take to translate the shame back into the valor he once embodied? He had dedicated his life to service and duty, yet here he was, measured against some invisible yardstick of worthiness. Reaching the garage, he grabbed a wrench and plunged into the task at hand, but his mind was a whirlwind. Each clank of metal against metal felt disconnected from the real artist he had been in uniform. He was a soldier accustomed to battling more than mechanical issues, yet each repair inflamed his walls of disappointment. The faces of the other mechanics blurred, their camaraderie felt like a distant planet, orbiting around unshared experiences. In this place, he felt less like a comrade and more like a relic, gathering dust. Then it hit him, what could he uncover in that attic? The dagger ache of uncertainty turned into resolve. Those medals didn't only represent past achievements, they were symbols of skills and resilience that still resided within him. Buried deeper than the grime of grease and oil, his spirit flickered. He recalled General Thompson speaking of legacy and honor with a fierceness that suggested ownership of one's narrative. No longer would he allow the judge's jeers to define him. Jack made his decision. He would explore the attic that night. Those relics could not only reconnect him to his family's history but could ground him in his own identity that the courtroom threatened to erase. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack descended the stairs of his family home, determination electrifying his muscles. The musty air of the attic enveloped him like a shroud. Shuffling through dusty boxes, he unearthed faded photographs and letters, pieces of history that stirred something deep in him. Each item told a story, valor in moments of peril, honor through sacrifice. These were his ancestors' lives, and they echoed the same struggle he faced. The weight of their journeys pressed upon him, igniting a recognition that his own challenges weren't unique but were part of a continuum. But just as the pulse of pride began to swell, he stumbled upon an old trunk locked tight, dust coating it like an untouched promise. Anxiety mingled with curiosity. What could lie within? His fingers brushed the layers of dust, a thrill coursed through him. In that moment, a new resolve crystallized. He would not shy away from confronting what the trunk held. Confidence swelled as he connected the past to the present, reminding himself that every soldier bears the weight of their history no matter how buried. The struggle was far from over. He needed to confront the narratives that defined him and reclaim his truth. As he fumbled with the lock, heartbeat quickening in anticipation, an inner voice whispered, was he ready for what he might discover? What hidden truths could lie within the shadows, waiting to shape his path forward? Before he could steady himself for the next steps, there was a sudden knock at the attic door, an unexpected interruption that jumbled his thoughts. Who could it be now? Jack hesitated, the tension mounting as uncertainty gripped him once more. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, the heavy thud echoing in his ears louder than the knock reverberating through the attic door. A multitude of thoughts spiraled in his mind. Should he ignore it? Keep pursuing the secrets contained within the trunk, or face whoever was waiting on the other side? With a deep breath, he reached for the door handle. The old wood creaked under his grip as he slowly opened it. His younger sister, Emily, stood there, an expression of concern shading her bright features. "Jack, you look intense," she said, raising an eyebrow, a mix of familiarity and surprise in her eyes. "Thought I'd do some digging around," he replied, trying to sound casual, but his voice faltered under the weight of his unspoken torment. "Digging around in the attic? At this hour?" Her playful tone didn't mask the worry behind it. "Are you okay? You got that look again." Jack paused, pushed down the urgency to shield her from his inner chaos. "It's just, I found something interesting." He realized that he wanted her to understand, yet couldn't find the right words amidst the tempest inside. "Interesting? Like what?" She pressed, inching into the cramped attic, her curiosity sparkling. The trunk loomed in the corner, a silent sentinel holding countless stories. He glanced back at it, the lock shimmering under the dim light. In that moment, he felt the gravity of the choices that lay before him. He could share the struggle, allow her to bear witness to the vulnerability he felt, or keep the past tethered within him, bound by doubt. "I found an old trunk," he admitted finally. I think it might hold something from our family history, maybe even something about me." He bit his lip as he spoke, realizing that revealing his quest for identity felt risky. Emily's interest piqued. "We should open it together. Come on, Jack. I swear digging up family secrets with you is way more exciting than Netflix." Her attempt to lighten the mood drew a weak smile from him, but the laughter didn't quiet his mind. He thought about General Thompson's remarks, the weight of legacy, and what he was ready to uncover or avoid. "Trust me, you might want to leave this one alone," he warned, though the protest felt half-hearted. "No way. It's our family. It's important." The resolution in her voice resonated with the passion he had yet to fully embrace himself. "Maybe sharing this moment wouldn't dilute his struggle, but weave another thread into the fabric of their shared history." Jack led her over to the trunk, dust wafting through the air like phantoms waiting to be released. "Okay, but if you break it, I'm blaming you," he said, trying to mask his own apprehension with humor. "Just hand me a screwdriver," Emily said, her tone light. There was an ease about her, a sharp contrast to the turmoil gnawing at him. Watching her enthusiasm, he found a flicker of hope. As they worked, the lock finally gave way, a screeching protest emerging from the old mechanism. Jack's breath quickened as he opened the trunk. Inside, he discovered not just medals, but letters, photographs, and mementos, tangible whispers from the past that could unravel truths he thought long buried. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen, a message from an old comrade wanting to meet. Another thread pulling him in an unexpected direction. Could connections from the past, both familial and brotherhood, provide the answers he sought? Would embracing all these narratives help him reclaim his own? He felt the weight of a burgeoning decision hovering just above him, and as he pulled out an aged letter, a chilling realization settled in. This was more than personal history, it was a roadmap to everything he needed to confront. Although he couldn't yet see where it would lead, one truth became crystal clear: he had to decide if he would allow the ghosts of his past to define him or if he would rewrite his narrative once and for all. Emily leaned closer, peering at the faded letter in his hands. "What does it say?" In the ensuing silence, the uncertainty of his journey loomed larger than ever. He drew in a breath, realizing the moment demanded truth. The time had come to face not only family legacies but the raw truth of who he had become. "Let us read it." Jack's voice, steadier now, pushed against the storm within, demanding clarity and purpose. In that attic, shadows danced among the echoes, and he braced himself for revelations that could reshape everything, hopefully, not just for himself, but for Emily too. A crucial narrative shift loomed on the horizon, urging him to take the leap. While the letter's secrets beckoned, another thought emerged unexpectedly. Was he prepared for the confrontation to come? As he unfolded the crinkled paper, an unsettling image of the judge's mockery surfaced, igniting a spark of apprehension in him. He knew the path ahead would be anything but straightforward. As Jack carefully unfurled the letter, its fragile edges cracked like dry leaves. The attic's muted lighting revealed the ink, smudged but legible, and his pulse quickened as he attempted to absorb the first lines. Each word felt significant, as though it was not just an echo from the past but a guiding force propelling him towards a confrontation with himself. "Dear Jack," it began, addressing a person he was not entirely sure he recognized. He steadied his breath, feeling the weight of his own identity shift slightly in that moment. His gaze flickered to Emily, her rapt attention urging him forward, a shared exploration of undisclosed family truths. As he continued reading, fragments of long-buried feelings awoke within him: disappointment, anger, and perhaps most painfully, hope. The writer spoke of dreams unrealized, of paths crossed and missed. They described a legacy riddled with struggles, a family legacy not always noble. With every line, Jack felt the tendrils of the past wrap around him, challenging him to own not just the triumphs, but the hurdles that had shaped him. "We wore our medals proudly," it stated, referring to the accolades that hung on their wall, symbolic of both honor and unfulfilled potential. Jack could almost hear the judge's disparaging remarks, alighting sharp memories of ridicule. But beneath it all was a familiar flame ignited by the thought of rediscovery. Jack's fingers trembled slightly as he reached the final lines of the letter. Whoever had penned it imbued a raw truth that felt palpably alive: our mistakes do not define us. It is what we choose to do with them that writes our story. That's powerful, Emily whispered, her expression serious. Jack met her gaze, feeling the weight of her understanding. This was more than just a letter, these were the echoes of their family history, reverberating through generations. But did the past dictate his future? Could he rewrite the narrative he felt shackled by? Outside, the wind howled like a distant army, pushing Jack to consider the people he had served with, comrades who faced battles unlike his own. The invitation from his old comrade resurfaced, demanding attention. The prospect of revisiting that world filled him with equal parts dread and curiosity. Could he confront those ghosts, gain answers from his history, and emerge not just as a man marked by his experiences, but as someone who owned them and transformed them into strength? You know, he spoke, turning to Emily once more, I always avoided any mention of our family history or the medals. It felt safer that way. I thought if I kept my past away from the spotlight, it wouldn't wound me any further. Her silence reverberated with acceptance. But maybe that was a mistake, wasn't it? He continued, speaking to both of them. Staying silent hasn't helped me grow. He had shielded himself out of fear, convinced that letting others see him vulnerable, uncertain would lead to judgment. But now, with the letter in hand, he understood what lay ahead, a confrontation. Not only with the judgments of others but with his own flawed perceptions. Emily, sensing a shift, nodded slowly. So, what's next? An internal conflict churned in Jack's gut, a challenge demanding resolution. The prospect of reaching out to his comrade meant facing truths about his past service, uncovering layers of camaraderie and heavy burdens borne by many. They had fought through nightmares together, yet here he was, struggling with the idea of his own legacy. I need to meet him, Jack finally asserted, a firm decision emerging as he gripped the letter tightly. His heart raced, fueled by a fresh wave of determination. I need to learn more about what they went through, what I might not understand. As he glanced back at the trunk filled with remnants from their family legacy, he recognized that this was not merely about himself. It was about reclaiming a narrative that defined not just his life, but his family's soul. But would the truths unearthed alongside his comrades serve as liberation, or would they threaten to ensnarl him deeper into a web of familial expectations? In that attic, Jack felt the future coalesce around him, a challenge wrapped tightly in uncertainty. He would emerge from this, one way or another. Resolved, he closed the letter and stood, motioning toward the door. Let us see where this takes us. As they descended from the attic, another realization dawned, a quiet but steadfast voice prodding him to contemplate the burdens of truth. The past was tempting to face, but at what cost? In the backdrop of the shadows, the depths of his journey were still unfolding, promising revelations that would reshape everything he thought he knew. The door creaked ominously behind him as they stepped into the light, and Jack's thoughts swirled with possibilities. What awaited him on the other side of that impending conversation? Jack's footsteps echoed softly against the wooden stairs as they descended from the attic. The familiar creak reminded him of his childhood, yet today, it bore the resonance of awakening, a prelude to his inner revolution. Each step was deliberate, he pulled in a steadying breath, a squeeze of ambition coursing through him. Emily lingered by his side, her presence a reminder of the support he did not often acknowledge. Suddenly, the path to his comrade felt less like a burden and more like a quest for truth. Do you think you're ready for this? Emily asked, her voice calm yet edged with curiosity. Ready? The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. Did he feel ready? He barely knew if he was prepared to confront his past, let alone his own vulnerabilities. But the letter's final sentiment echoed in his mind, combating the unease. It was what he chose to do now that would define him. I have to be, he replied, steering his resolve back to solid ground. As they reached the front door, the realization washed over him what lay before him was not just an encounter with an old friend, but a confrontation with himself, an excavation of truths buried under years of avoidance and regret. He could no longer afford the luxury of silence or isolation. With every intention laid bare, Jack dialed the number he had saved in his phone weeks ago. The sound of the ringing filled the silence, amplifying his anxiety. Memories of his comrades flooded in laughter shared, collective fears, brilliant flashes of bravery amid chaos. They had forged a bond in fire, one that had endured even as he had stashed it away like a relic. Hello? The voice on the other end was familiar, yet time had altered it slightly. Tom, he managed, heart hammering in his chest. It's Jack. Jack. Haven't heard from you in a while. How are you holding up? The warmth in Tom's tone provided a temporary reprieve from his burgeoning doubts. I'm working through some things. I'd like to meet up. There's so much I need to talk about, Jack admitted, each word tumbling out with the weight of years buried under fear. Of course. Let us grab coffee this weekend. After they hung up, Jack felt a swell of gratitude mixed with vulnerability. This marked the first time he would embrace communication about his internal battles, allowing someone back into his narrative. Was he ready to reveal the deeper scars he carried? What did he say? Emily inquired, her eyes reflecting earnest inquiry. He's agreed to meet. But I can't shake the fear of what that means. Facing the past always feels daunting, but you're not simply dredging up old wounds. You're reclaiming your story, she encouraged, her steadfast assurance bolstering his fragile confidence. As Saturday approached, anticipation and trepidation intertwined. Jack meticulously prepared for their meeting, contemplating questions that swirled in his mind like autumn leaves caught in a breeze. What had he missed about their shared experience? What truths still lay buried beneath the camaraderie? The cafe they chose was bustling, filled with laughter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It felt like both a refuge and a trap. Tom was already seated, a casual smile on his face, familiar yet steeped in the passage of time. The man who had once shared his burdens now bore his own heavy tales, stories Jack had avoided. Jack. Good to see you. Tom greeted warmly as they clasped hands, their old bond reaffirming itself in that moment. Yeah, it's been too long. They settled into conversation, but Jack's mind raced underneath the surface, parsing through the past. The small talk veiled the deeper discussions he yearned for, the gravelly depths of shared losses and realignment of their lives post-service. Finally, he plunged into the abyss of vulnerability. Tom, there's something I need you to help me understand, he said, locking eyes with his friend. What did this all really mean to us? What did we endure together? As Tom leaned back, his expression shifted, strong emotion sparking in his eyes. He was about to unveil layers of their shared legacy, a narrative overshadowed by silence. The time had come to face the truths echoing through their lives. Jack's heart raced anew as he braced for the revelation, the weight of unspoken history shimmering just beneath the surface. Would confronting this reality lead to the liberation he sought, or deepen the complexities of his past? Jack, you're not going to believe what happened after that deployment, Tom began, the depth of his words poised to reshape everything Jack thought he knew about himself, about their service, and about the legacy that bound them. Jack felt an electric jolt as Tom's words settled into silence. For a moment, the bustling cafe faded, replaced by a dimly lit battlefield in his mind, a place where camaraderie clashed with regret. The room felt smaller, the stakes higher. He leaned in, eager but guarded, ready to hear whatever truth lay ahead. What happened? Jack prompted, urgency tinged with the shadows of his past echoing in his tone. Tom hesitated, his gaze drifting as if searching for echoes of their shared history among the clinking cups and murmured conversations around them. It's not what you think, Jack. After we came back, I fell apart. I was a mess, drugs, depression, all of it. The admission hit Jack like a bullet, the sharpness of the revelation drawing a gasp from within. He had known the silent battles of their deployment, he had witnessed the shifts in demeanor and saw the shadows behind Tom's smile, but hearing it articulated forced an undeniable confrontation with the reality they had both been avoiding. Why didn't you say anything? Jack felt anger and regret tangled in his chest. I could have helped you. Tom's expression flickered with pain, his brow furrowing. Because I didn't think it mattered. We were supposed to be warriors, remember? Tough. Unbreakable. Instead, I folded like a house of cards. You were already dealing with your own demons. I didn't want to burden you further. The weight of Tom's words soared over the tables between them, pulling Jack deeper into that place of past regrets. He remembered his own struggles, the nights spent drowning his thoughts in whiskey, the mornings when he would wake to reminders of all he had lost. Both men had lived in the shadows of shame, unable to break the cycle of hiding their battles. I thought I was the only one struggling, Jack confessed, the tremor in his voice betraying the facade he had consistently upheld. I thought you were okay. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet long enough, it would all go away. Tom's eyes locked onto Jack's with a mixture of understanding and pain. It's hard to admit weakness when the world expects us to be strong. But that's not the truth, Jack. We're not meant to carry this alone. It's okay to not be okay. The floodgates in Jack's heart cracked open. As Tom spoke, Jack began to feel the cold grip of isolation loosening its hold. He had spent years believing that he was the only broken soldier. But here was Tom, a mirror reflecting all the struggles Jack had endured. The collective vulnerability of their shared stories offered a light that cut through the fog. So what did you do? Jack asked softly, curiosity now mingling with relief. I found a therapist, Tom replied, his tone settling into something resembling peace. It was terrifying. Sharing all that baggage felt like an unspeakable risk. But in time, I started to see things clearly. I had to confront my past to reclaim my future. Jack hesitated, confronting the frightening yet liberating possibility of being honest about his struggles, too. And it helped. His voice was barely a whisper, vulnerability rooting him to the spot as the life he had built on silence began to tremble. Like you wouldn't believe. Tom's smile transcended the years, resilient and heartfelt. I learned how to embrace my scars instead of hiding them. You can do that too, Jack. But you need to let someone in. The gravity of Tom's encouragement settled around Jack, a mantle warming against the chill of fear. This was the moment meant for deeper exploration, a crossroads where Jack could choose to either retreat back into the shadows or step into the light, vulnerable but empowered to reclaim what had always belonged to him, his voice, his truth, his future. I don't know if I'm ready, Jack admitted, feeling the weight of every shared memory pressing against his chest. You won't be ready until you start, Tom responded with an earnestness that cut through Jack's doubts. But you have to start somewhere. The conversation began to unfold like a well-trodden path, guiding Jack deeper into uncharted territory, his own psyche. He was not just a soldier, he was a man grappling with the complexities of healing. As Jack leaned back into his chair, he felt a shift within. The promise of transformation teased at the edges of his consciousness, it felt both terrifying and exhilarating. What lay hidden in the rest of their shared legacy? How deep did that rabbit hole run? Tom's gaze sparkled with intent, urging him onward and sparking a question buried deep within Jack. Tom, what else didn't we talk about? What other secrets did we bury? What else is there to discover? The question hung in the air as the room pulsed with the sounds of life around them, binding them not only in their past but also in an intimate promise of growth and revelation. The journey had just begun. Jack's heart raced as his thoughts cascaded from one revelation to the next. Tom's words created a crack within him, a fissure that invited light but also exposed his deepest fears. As he stared into the depths of his coffee, almost lost in the swirling patterns, he sensed an unfamiliar turbulence building. He felt himself teetering on the edge of a new reality, one where introspection held the potential for growth and, paradoxically, for greater risk. "What are we so afraid of?" Jack asked, the question slipping from his tongue like a confession. It was more rhetorical than an invitation for response. Old defenses buried beneath years of tough exterior were beginning to disintegrate. Tom nodded, instinctually understanding the weight behind the words. Fear of judgment. Fear of not being strong enough. And maybe, the fear of revealing who we truly are underneath all that armor. The cafe buzzed with the energy of everyday life, but for Jack, the world had narrowed. He felt a single, penetrating gaze, his own staring back at him from a mirror he had long avoided. How much longer could he wear the mask of the invincible soldier? The vulnerability of the past few moments began to sink deeper as Jack's mind turned over fragments of memories, the chaos of deployment, the immediate camaraderie, the inevitable separation. And then the silence. "What if I told you," Jack started, a quiet tremor marking his voice as he wrestled with the reality of sharing, "that I thought strength meant never asking for help? That I thought admitting a struggle made me weak?" Tom leaned forward, as if leaning into Jack's truth would help solidify it, help instill confidence. "That's the lie, Jack. Strength isn't in the silence we keep but in the acknowledgement of our pain. It's in choosing to reach out when it all feels too heavy. And it's also about taking that first step, however daunting." Jack swallowed hard, the metaphor of the first step sticking in his throat. Accepting help would mean embracing his vulnerabilities, a daunting proposition for someone who had built walls so high. The constant jab in his chest reminded him of unresolved injuries, but beneath it lay a flicker of resilience. "Do you think it's too late for me?" Jack asked, the softness of the inquiry surprising even himself. He didn't want to cast a shadow of defeat, yet the lingering self-doubt loomed like an old adversary. "It's never too late," Tom reassured him, his voice steady and clear. "Healing is not linear, and what matters most is that it begins now. Embrace the process. You're not defined by your past, you're shaped by how you overcome it." Jack felt a surge of determination mingling with his apprehension. He knew he couldn't go through this journey alone, and the thought of sharing the truth about himself resonated within him, an urgent whisper of possibility. As they sat in that cafe, surrounded by the familiar buzz of day-to-day life, the slightest smile crept onto Jack's lips. Maybe the path wouldn't be straightforward, but together, they could bring light to the shadows that had once threatened to consume them. Tom's phone buzzed on the table, abruptly pulling them back to the present. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "I need to take this. Just one moment." Jack nodded, but his thoughts spiraled with renewed intensity, heart racing as the enormity of their discussion unfolded. What might he uncover if he dared to follow through? The thought of therapy lingered like a distant lighthouse, steeped in possibility but shrouded in fear. The breeze from the cafe door swung open, pushing a swirl of fresh air into the room while briefly disrupting their intimate space. Jack's gaze caught on the outside world, where the mundane unfolded unimpeded by his internal turmoil. Would he claim his place in that world or remain shackled by the weight of his past? As Tom ended the call, he turned to Jack, unknowingly echoing Jack's own inner questioning. "What's next for you?" It was an invitation Jack had been both dreading and yearning for. Everything hung in the balance: determination, wavering against fear, the promise of healing against the dread of the unknown. I think Jack hesitated, grounding himself in every ounce of strength he could muster. "I need to start facing this, all of it. I need to speak to someone." Tom's eyes lit up with encouragement. "Yes, go for it. It's a beginning." Jack nodded resolutely, while beneath the surface, he felt Monty's whispering shadows stirring. What new territory awaited him? What more could he unravel? And just as despair wrestled with resolve, a tremor of anxiety shot through him. The time had come to face not just what lay ahead but also those untold parts of himself longing for liberation. But he wasn't sure he could manage the challenge. How deep did this journey into self-discovery run? Would he emerge transformed or end up more lost in the labyrinth? The question laced the air, binding him to an imminent choice, one that could shape his future in ways he couldn't yet fathom. Jack stepped outside, the bustling street in abrupt contrast to the contemplative atmosphere he'd just shared with Tom. The sun cast an inviting warmth on his face, yet the unease churning within him grew more pronounced. He felt a connection to the world around him, and yet a profound disconnection clung to his heels, threatening to pull him back into shadows he wanted to escape. He took a breath, allowing the fresh air to fill his lungs, but the tension in his chest remained a tight band of uncertainty. Was he truly willing to confront the buried monsters within? Each step felt like a statement, each stride forward a rejection of the heavy past he'd draped over himself like a cloak, shielding him from the vulnerability he feared. As he ambled down the sidewalk, Jack's mind wandered to the first therapy session he would set up, an action he had so often envisioned but seldom embraced. He imagined sitting across from a stranger, illuminated by soft lighting, baring his soul. Would he crumble or rise? Would he find solace or face an avalanche of regret? The back-and-forth standoff between hope and resistance tightened his insides, a knowing reminder of the battles he'd endured. Arriving at a nearby park, Jack paused at a bench, absorbing the scene: children playing, couples laughing, joggers bounding by. He scanned for signs of potential connections, remnants of his past friendships, and the brotherhood he had known. A wave of nostalgia washed over him, bittersweet and tender, juxtaposed against the churning realization that moments like these brought undeniable joy yet also an aching loneliness. The question gnawed at him again: what was it going to take for him to unfurl his tightly held truths? As he sat on the bench, his fingers traced the ridges of his palms, where he could almost feel the imprint of metals long earned, a stark reminder of a time when he felt strong, invincible. But they weighed differently now, becoming burdens that mocked his internal struggle. He earned them for serving, and yet, they felt like reminders of every crack and flaw he'd cultivated in silence. It was time for action. Standing up, Jack launched into a brisk walk, determined to anchor himself in the present. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through numbers until he landed on a local therapist, a decision that felt monumental yet inevitable. The ticking seconds resonated loudly as he pressed call, a mix of anticipation and dread building in the pit of his stomach. "Hi, this is Dr. Miller's office," a soft voice greeted him. Jack hesitated for a fraction of a second, his heart hammering, but then he introduced himself, fighting through the quaking uncertainty. He made an appointment, the weight of the conversation lingering in the air long after the call ended. Still fired up by the act of commitment, he continued to pace, seeking focus on the conversation he had just initiated. Each step sent ripples of energy through him, a blend of courage and fear igniting his determination. It was a small step, but a moment to celebrate nonetheless. Yet, within him stirred the uncertainty of whether he'd be strong enough to confront unflattering truths. He recalled Tom's words, "Healing is not linear." But what if getting confronted uncovered more pain than he anticipated? What if vulnerability opened doors best left shut? As he rounded a corner, Jack spotted a nearby bookstore. A whisper of curiosity nudged him toward the entrance. Inside, the smell of paper and ink intertwined with the sense of potential that books offered. He wandered through the aisles, allowing the titles to guide him. With each turn, he felt moments of clarity, insights and lessons hidden in narratives, resonating with his own experiences. After selecting a book on emotional healing, he glanced toward the checkout counter, eager to embrace this newfound focus on his journey, yet the nagging questions crept back in, intertwining with the rise of his resolve. Would these small actions create a cascade of change in his life, or would he remain caught in an endless loop of self-doubt? Jack left the bookstore, clutching the book tightly, feeling its weight like a promise and a challenge all at once. But in that moment of uncertainty, he knew he was on the threshold of something significant, an undeniable push toward getting known. And just before he made his way home, he couldn't help but consider what awaited him in that first session. Each breath formed a reminder that the road ahead was uncharted, and every decision mattered. As he pondered that, he realized that engaging this journey meant facing the music, torching the fears that kept him in the shadows. Just then, an idea ignited within him. What if he used his experience to not only heal but to help others as well? Could he be more than a soldier? Could he be a beacon? With that thought, an unexpected sense of urgency shot through him. He felt at the edge of a potential breakthrough, one that beckoned to be explored further. Would this path of healing ultimately lead to a deeper understanding of himself and a way to help others? But the question hung in the air: who would he become once he began to shed those pieces of armor he held so dear? Only time would tell, and Jack felt both exhilarated and terrified at the prospect. Jack awoke the following morning with a tumult of thoughts swirling in his mind, the weight of the impending therapy session pressing against his throat like an unseen collar. It was a stark reminder of the leap he was about to take, and he felt as if every second was a countdown. Stretching his arms, Jack forced himself to rise from bed, the soft morning light spilling through the curtains as if nudging him toward action. Today was not just another day, it was a turning point. He couldn't allow the inertia of fear to whisper betrayal in his ear. He recalled the book he'd picked up, its cover emblazoned with the words "healing through vulnerability." The irony of those words resonated starkly as he slipped into his sneakers, the small act of tying his laces an assertion of commitment. He decided to run, something that had always been an anchor for him. The rhythmic pounding of his feet against the pavement cleared his mind and brought clarity among the chaos. With every inhale, he visualized casting aside his worries. With every exhale, he imagined releasing the remnants of his past. Jack plunged deeper into the cadence of his breath, pushing himself harder, faster, each stride a testament to determination battling against self-doubt. Yet, the truth was, with every mile, the closer he got to the therapy session, the clearer the specter of uncertainty loomed. As he rounded the final stretch towards the park, he saw a group of kids flying kites in the open field, their laughter breaking through the layered fog of his thoughts. In that moment, Jack was struck by a piercing realization: just as the kites soared freely, unburdened by their strings, perhaps he too could untether himself from the constraints that held him captive. After cooling down, he returned home, showered, and prepared himself for the day ahead. He pulled on a simple shirt that he knew made him feel confident, one that symbolized the mask he so often presented to the world. Wasn't it time to shed that facade? Yet, as he paced the floor, the same questions crashed over him like wave after wave. Was he ready to reveal the scars he'd stitched together? With time ticking away, Jack shifted his focus to the practicalities of the session. His mind dove into potential scenarios, analyzing how to express his struggles. What if he flailed in articulating his feelings? What if he revealed too much or, worse, too little? It was a constellation of anxieties that threatened to blanket the spark of hope he felt post-call with Dr. Miller. Jack made a list of functional approach to dispelling the anxiety that had formed like a storm cloud in his mind. Topics he wanted to cover, questions that lingered, and even deep-seated fears he hoped to unravel. As he scribbled furiously, each word felt like an act of defiance against lingering self-doubt, a choice to reclaim his narrative. Taking a deep breath, he reread his list, the ink dark and resolute against the paper, mirroring the conviction he needed to hold on to. In so doing, Jack realized there was something almost empowering in laying out his thoughts, revealing the inherent strength within vulnerability. This was the first small victory in a series of battles yet to come. Finally, it was time to leave. The clock showed his appointment was just minutes away, and he fought the urge to stall. Stepping outside, the world felt slightly different, vivid yet uncertain. Jack made the journey to the therapist's office, breathing deeply, feeling the sun warm his skin. It was as if the universe cooperated with his intent, a sign that the decision he made yesterday was valid, significant, and ripe. As he entered the office building, the sensation intensified, each beat of his heart a drumroll heralding a moment of profound potential. He noted an unsettling calmness wash over him as he approached the therapist's door. The butterflies flitting in his stomach reminded him that vulnerability lay ahead, but what if this vulnerability became his strength? He raised his hand to knock, heart racing, but before he could tap the door, an unexpected thought crossed his mind. What if healing wasn't just about him? What if understanding his battles could illuminate a path for others grappling with their own darkness? With that realization, Jack took a step back, the moment suspended in time. Perhaps he wasn't merely facing a session of introspection, this could be the spark that ignited something larger. The door felt like a portal, not just to his healing, but to his purpose. Inhaling deeply, Jack met his thoughts with renewed determination. The fleeting panic morphed into a quiet resolve. He knocked, the sound echoing like the call of a warrior stepping into battle. But as the door creaked open, revealing the calm, inviting space within, Jack couldn't shake the growing sense that this was only the beginning. What lay on the other side would either bind him tighter or help him to break free in ways he couldn't yet imagine. With that, he stepped inside, ready to confront the unknown and begin a journey far more expansive than he had foreseen. Would he emerge a mere participant in this quest for healing, or would he find a role in guiding others through their own valleys of despair? Jack Turner sat across from Dr. Miller, the clock ticking softly, dividing time into moments of reflection and uncharted introspection. Nervously tapping his fingers against his jeans, he felt the weight of anticipation surge within him. This was not just a therapy session, it was the beginning of reclaiming his narrative and confronting the shadows of his past. "Tell me about why you're here today," Dr. Miller prompted, her voice calm yet inviting, opening a space for the floodgates of Jack's emotions. As he glanced down at the floor, the burden of silence shifted. It was time to unearth the truth, the unrefined shards of his story, the struggles buried beneath layers of pride. "I feel like I've hidden from myself for so long. I thought being strong meant toughing it out alone. But I'm tired. I want to understand who I really am now, outside of my medals and my past." With that statement, a new freedom settled in Jack's chest, igniting a flicker of hope in his heart. Each word he shared became a step toward unraveling those tightly wound threads, transforming pain into a canvas of self-discovery. Dr. Miller nodded, reassured by his honesty. "It's a long journey to come to terms with the past, especially when doing so feels vulnerable, but vulnerability is courage. It's your shield, not your weakness." Jack felt the warmth of her words wash over him. The profound truth lingered. The path he had once perceived as weakness was, in fact, an essential part of healing. Was he ready to embrace this new perspective? Yes. As days turned into weeks, Jack's therapy sessions evolved into a ritual of healing. With every visit, he lay bare his fears and regrets, and each discussion peeled back layers of his guarded facade. Memories flooded his mind, the squalor of night terrors, the laughter with comrades, the crushing solitude of returning home. Gradually, he began to see himself more clearly, like a soldier shedding his uniform. He was not just a man molded by sacrifice, he was a tapestry woven from strength born of vulnerability. The worries that had once shackled him loosened their grip. But the most significant shift began as Jack's newfound realization birthed an idea. Maybe his lived experiences could extend beyond mere solitude. He envisioned a support network for veterans, a safe haven where each man and woman could also confront their truths, just as he had. He started to outline a plan, detailing how he could build community through shared narratives. Using social media as a starting point, Jack harnessed his affinity for technology, eager to create a space welcoming others to talk about their struggles and experiences. This transformation from soldier to advocate felt liberating. Through candid conversations and storytelling, he curated a collection of voices all reminiscent of his own journey. And slowly, Jack turned from seeker to guide, facilitating discussions that empowered others to follow their paths to healing. In a particularly poignant moment at a local community center, surrounded by fellow veterans, Jack watched as the once mute voices began to flourish. Their shared stories became gateways, reminders that pain need not be carried in silence. They validated each other's suffering and celebrated every win, no matter how small. With each encounter, Jack realized he was no longer just a recount of his past, he was helping others rewrite theirs. The culmination of his professional and personal journey came when he was invited to share his story at a National Veterans Convention. Standing on that stage, the hot lights a sharp contrast to the cold judgment he had faced in court, Jack took a deep breath and examined the expansive crowd before him. Tales of struggle intermingled with resilience rolled from his lips, intertwining threads of his journey with those of every soul present. The weight of judgment transformed into a shared understanding, a collective moment where stories birthed hope. As he concluded his speech, applause broke out, echoing like the battle cries of redemption that had transformed his life. In that moment, Jack realized the true strength of his journey. It was never solely about the accolades of the past, it was about honoring the stories of fellow combatants in the war of healing. With head held high and heart full, Jack left the stage more fulfilled than he ever thought possible. He had reclaimed not only his narrative but emerged as a beacon in the lives of others, proving that true valor often lies in shared vulnerability. Jack Turner stepped into the world with solid confidence, recognized competence, and an established position as an advocate, charting paths for those still lost in the haze. Each day he worked to create connections, cultivate understanding, and foster community, reinvigorating purpose in both lives and legacy. And so, he found himself the man beyond the medals, the soldier who learned to share, connect, and empower. He stood embraced by love and acceptance, forging connections no judgment could unravel. Today marked not just a personal achievement, it heralded the dawn of a movement, one where courage both in healing and honesty could lead to a greater sense of belonging for all who had served. The journey of healing was far from over, but Jack Turner stood resolute, prepared to navigate the road ahead, ensuring no one would walk their path alone. Now it's your turn. Have you felt inspired by Jack's transformation? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more uplifting tales reach those in need. Comment your reactions and theories about Jack's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our community through these actions.